Tinubu cannot concentrate over lack of legitimacy. He's been distracted, and Pastor Tommy is letting us know the reason why he's not being focused. How do you think he's not really being focused, or he's been distracted because of lack of legitimacy? Even after the Supreme Court had given its verdict, let's know what he meant by that. Nigeria informations, okay. Onyekachi also sat down with a renowned economist Pat Utomi in Port Harcourt for a chat about the state of the nation. Okay, with what is going on in Rivers State, you are already familiar with the supposed godfather situation. What is your take on the lingering political crisis in the state? Okay, this question was being thrown to him. Utomi said, I think it is sad. Very, 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 very sad. It almost missed to the point that we don't have democracy in Nigeria. In a democracy, what matters is the will of the people. But somehow, the impression has been created that there is a cabal that captures the state, and once state capture takes place, the cabal can try to clone itself in its succession process. As a result of this, some people are giving up on the democratic system and saying, this is not a democracy, it doesn't work. It does not work at all. Well, you know that is what happens when that's and that is the general perception. People stop paying attention to the votes, and then what can happen is it becomes a survivor of the fittest, war between the warlords. So whoever has the biggest firepower takes over until something happens, and we don't want to get there, and that is not a good place to be. Nigeria has suffered too much from the weaknesses of the democratic system. We started with the fact that political parties are unfortunately not political parties. Who they are in Nigeria is a machine, or machine politics. People essentially use those platforms to corner power, and that is not good because the position arrived without any clear set of policies that they are going to implement. If there was a proper political party process, then the process of identifying good people who are then socialized into the values of the party, into the ideas or ideologies of the party, and then become that of identifying party plans, which is then used as the basis for generating policies and implementing them, and then held accountable for them. That is why democracy works. But when the people focus mainly on how to corner power for the godfathers part of this machine arrangements, then it stops being a democracy. All the resources go into oiling that machinery and that state resources. Can these politicians justify the amount of public money that is being spent on these games that they play? I think that part of it is the failure of civil society, because if civil society were alive and awake, politicians would be called to account for these things. They cannot continue to carry on like that. Look, many years ago, I was part of a big campaign for what became the International Criminal Courts. I remember that in January of 1997, I made a presentation to the editorial board of the Christian Science Monitor in Boston. At that time, it was one of the greatest newspapers in the world from my days. I was fortunate as a graduate student back in the 70s to be a contributor to the CMS, and so when I returned on sabbatical, I was writing a book about business school in 1996. 1997, I began the campaign traveling around the US and said we should try African leaders who literally essentially betray their people through genocide and economic crimes that come through corruption. In January of 1997, I was then asked by the General Board of the Christian Science Monitor to come in and talk to them about it. So when I finished my presentation, they said it would never happen, that this international criminal court thing, you are being too idealistic. 2 years later, it happened. I didn't even get my two courts. I wanted two courts. I wanted the court to try leaders for economic crimes against their people, and if we did that, half of the governors in Nigeria will be jailed. And that is why it is an even more important court than the criminal court that looks at genocide and stuff like that. We need international economic crimes court against leaders who use the economy or the commonwealth in the state capture syndrome that has come to Africa. In the last couple of years, I have served on the boards of some South African companies, and the good portion of their board meeting time they spend dealing with this state capture. South Africa set up its own commission to deal with its state capture. Here we are, and since we started this conversation, I kind of laugh at them. I said, look, we are talking about state capture. You have not seen state capture. In Nigeria, you see states uplift. They carry the state, not capture. We carry it. We must stop this. If we don't stop it in Nigeria, we are lost. We are done. Well, okay, now that okay, now what do you say to the people who find themselves in a state where these godfather situations are playing out? Utomi said again, this is the point that I made about civil society. It is important for civil society to organize themselves and say enough is enough. We cannot continue like this. Unfortunately, civil society has become so weak. When we were in school at the University of Nigeria in the early 1970s, before you start, we were already on the streets. What has happened? Why are students not able to respond? Why are professional groups not able to organize effectively? So this is really a problem that we are facing in Nigeria, and we really cannot as a society afford for civil society to be domicile. Okay. The interview went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Talk grammar every day. And now let's go to the area of economy. Much has happened since the inauguration of the current administration. What do you make of the efforts so far to revive the economy? And Utomi said, well, seeing is believing, and so they say. So we have to watch, wait and see. I'm just worried because the government has a major legitimacy problem. It spends most of its time reacting to the fact that it lacks legitimacy, and so policies are not necessarily inspired by a clear goal, but rather is is France going to see this and say, okay, good boys, is Washington going to see this? Okay, yes, we would support you. They are distracted by this lack of legitimacy, and that is unfortunate for the Nigerian economy. And what this man was saying is that you know, even with his own body language within himself, I think somebody was saying that even Tinubu knows within himself that he did not win the election. That's why he's always coming. So he went to Germany and began to say, oh, he worked in Delos, he was this, he was that. That was not what people were expecting him to say, but to concentrate on sell Nigeria, not yourself. No matter what, the lack of legitimacy is there. And the worst part of it is that they talk about a state capture. You see, I just saw a PDP chieftain saying by the end of this week he will be inaugurated, or he will be welcomed into the APC forum. And I just say these people do not even have integrity as they should. All of them are running a scatter, and they are the ones giving it into this state capture of a thing. Let's see how all of this and where all of this will lead us as a country and a people. So guys, let's say your opinion and have your take on this matter, because it's getting serious.